Good evening, and welcome to the 2020 Foxborough Jaycees Candidates Night. This is an annual tradition the Jaycees are happy to bring you, the people of Foxborough. My name is Sophia Manos, and I am a proud member of the Foxborough Jaycees. I am currently serving as the Ways and Means VP, and this is my fourth year moderating this event. I wonder if that means I'm now term limited. Anyway, so while the intent of the event is the same, the venue is quite a bit different. We are all in our homes, and we are all using Zoom. Zoom. Sorry, lame joke, and I'm late saying it. Everyone else has said it. I wanted to get my chance in. But seriously, while we may not be able to be in the studio on Central Street, we are here with our friends at Foxborough Cable Access, and I wanted to very much thank Mike Weber and Lauren Bitar for their efforts on the show and for hanging in there and just doing such a great job as they always do. And I want to thank the whole Cable Access crew that are still around doing their good work for our town. Try not to suck up here, but they certainly are essential employees in my book. Local cable access that covers our events and our people are vitally important to communities, especially when we can all be so overwhelmed with the 24-hour news cycle and the inundation of so much information on a global scale. Sometimes you just need to turn it off and tune into your neighborhood. And that's what we hope you can do tonight. Let's focus in on the folks who have a more direct impact on Foxborough. Your neighbors. Your neighbors who turned off that TV and maybe put down their phones and said, I want to serve. And this year, we have a great slate of 5 incumbents and 12 newcomers. And while we have 3 folks running to fill 1 seat vacated by David Feldman on the Board of Selectmen, we also want to say goodbye to David and thank you for his 6 years of service. We have 2 women running for an open seat on the school committee. And we even have contested races for the Board of Assessors and for Housing Authority, both the 1 and 5-year terms. So while there is nothing quite normal about the time we find ourselves in, I do hope that a new normal that we can all get behind is encouraging our invested fellow citizens who decide to run now and for those who decide to run in the future. This evening, you will hear from some of the pre-recorded messages for a handful of candidates, as well as those who are here with us on Zoom. We have 2 candidates running for school committee and 3 candidates for the Board of Selectmen present. So tonight, they will field questions for our local Foxborough patch reporter, Jimmy Bentley. He's back with us for a 2nd year, and I'm thankful to him. We will also hear a very important message about this year's election from Robert CUTLER, our town clerk. As you know, at this point, our election is on June 8th, and the town meeting is set for June 15th. Mr. CUTLER will have a great deal more information on all of that. Before we move on to the rules, I just have to state this as well. The Foxborough Jaycees, as an organization, and myself here tonight, cannot and will not endorse any candidate, nor can we espouse any particular political point of view. This is specifically stated in our chapter bylaws. Had to get that out of the way. And now with all of that out of the way, let's move on to the rules. My title is moderator, but this is the first time I'm an actual internet moderator. But don't worry, I will not cut anything out, but I may cut the candidates off. You see, because we have no timekeeper off camera this year, I'll be doing it here and alerting the candidates silently if they need to wrap up, or at least trying my best to. We're asking those who are reading statements to keep them about 3 minutes or so in length, and for those in attendance participating in the Q&A to have their introductory statements at around 3 minutes each as well. The candidates will then be asked some questions from our local press representative. For the Q&A segments, the candidates will have a couple of minutes or so to answer the questions, after which they will be asked a follow-up question. The candidates will have a minute or so for the follow-up. Each candidate will have a chance to answer the same question. After the questions and answer period, each candidate can choose to make a closing remark. And if they do, I've asked them to keep it around the 2 minutes mark. Let's finally bring in the aforementioned local press rep, Jimmy Bentley of the Foxborough Patch. Jimmy, thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you for having me, Sophia. How's everything going with you?
Going okay. How about you?
Things are going great. Family's staying safe. I hope everyone else is as well.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that sentiment. I should have been so thoughtful as to ask the same thing, but focus right now is on school committee, and that's where we're going to start this evening. Joining us now are the two candidates seeking to fill the one open seat of the very important school committee. Please welcome Selena Chowdhury and Michelle Raymond. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
So as we discussed earlier, you can each offer an introductory statement, and then Jimmy will ask each of you some questions, perhaps some follow-ups, and if either of you are inclined, please offer some parting words. I advise doing so. We had a coin flip earlier, and Selena won and opted to go first for her statement. We will then alternate the question order. And again, please note that I may try to get your attention if you happen to run over time. Selena, thank you for your patience. Begin when ready.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to this candidate night. Special thank you to Jaycees and Cable Access, and also Jimmy and Michelle participating with me. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Selena Chowdhury. I know this is a difficult time. We've been going through a lot of uncertainty. I know. I sincerely hope this phase passes soon. Our community and loved ones are all stay safe and healthy. As we think ahead, I wanted to tell you that I'm running for a seat on Foxborough committee. I've been a resident of Foxborough almost 10 years now. I'm the mother of two boys who are currently in this school district. Little bit about my professional life. I studied business administration and management. I have more than 15 years of experience working in the banking industry, leading and managing team. Currently, I'm a small business owner. And as you may ask me, why are you running? I've always been passionate about children's education and community involvement. I feel that our current committee can benefit from key changes. I can bring fresh perspective and help promote diversity and inclusion in our district for our children. And as a school committee member, I would like to focus on district-wide key issues such as overcoming budget challenges and review school policy and improving our test scores. I want the best possible outcome for our children and the community. And decisions I'll be making as a school committee member will impact our children for years to come. We want to make sure all of our children and the teachers have the best resources and tools they need to succeed in the 21st century. And I am committed to make decisions best teachers for our children and the community.
Okay, all set? You just beat me to when I was going to put up a piece of paper. Well done. All right, you got me in under time. And now we'll move on to Michelle. Please, whenever you're ready.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Foxborough Jaycees for having us. I think this is a fantastic program. The way it's being done is a little different, I think, for all of us. And thank you very much, Selena, for being able to go first. I appreciate that. So like I said, my name is Michelle Raymond. I'm running for the school committee. I'm a relatively recent transplant to Foxborough. We've been here for about 5 years. We have also two boys, a high school student and an 8th grader. And one of the main reasons we came to Foxborough was not just the sense of community that we saw here, but also the quality of the schools. That was something that was really important to us. I did a lot of research, talked to a lot of people within the schools when making that decision. And from that time, have really tried to continue that. I have volunteered on the Foxborough Advisory Committee, which was a great learning experience on learning about the town, how things worked, as well as being a liaison between the advisory committee and the school committee. So really got to learn a lot about the schools themselves. Previously, in our former town, We lived in North Attleboro, where I was also involved in town government there as a town representative, as well as what's called the coordinating committee with the RTM. So I experienced there, not only as a parent, a resident, but also involved in the town, what happens when a town has a real fiscal crunch and the schools wind up paying for that. So I really kind of seen that fiscal aspect. In regards to professional life, I am a practicing attorney as well as mediator, and work with a lot of parents and children, as well as school-related issues. So one of the things that I really like to do is, work in trying to help people recognize solutions to problems that they might not automatically see, both as a mediator, professionally, as well as personally. I really see that what we're dealing with here, with not just the town, but the country is dealing with in the terms of education, is a lot of change, a lot of uncertainty. And I'd really like to be able to continue to help the school and the town with all the changes that are coming. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm only saying awesome, by the way. Response to both opening statements are very good, but also I didn't know if my silly little please wrap up sign worked. I think she might have been coming to a logical conclusion, but still, it had a smiley face on it. Okay. So I can stop that now. And so I think we're good to go for the question. So Jimmy, since Selena went first on the statement, Michelle can accept the first question. So ask away.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for both of you being here. My first question is just with COVID-19 impacting schools across the state and affecting the budgets of those schools, what do you think will be the most important thing for you to do in your first year on the board to help students get the best education that they can?
That is a really tough question, because one of the things is, what is school going to look like next year? Over the next year, one of the first things that needs to be determined is, when are kids going back? How is that going to look? What I've really seen, not only from my own kids, but for younger children, and listening to parents talk about that, is kids need to have challenges. They need to have socialization. And I think what we've all kind of learned is how important that socialization and the interaction between the students and the teacher really is. I really think this is a time where we as a town, as a school committee, can take somewhat of a step back and look at what are really the goals for education. What do the kids need to be learning? How do they need to learn it? And how can we apply these, all of these different options to kids that have different learning styles? I learned early on, my kids had special kind of needs and learned in a very different way. And so I understand that kids may need different ways and have things being presented in different ways. I think it's a huge challenge. I don't have the answers. I'm not going to say I do, but I definitely feel that I could be helpful in trying to contribute to a solution.
Okay, thanks. Selena, same question to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jimmy. Excellent question. As we all experiencing this pandemic changed us a lot. Forced us to adopt or even our regular routine. We are not doing the regular routine anymore. We are more relying on online, and especially I think the students are adopting remote learning, and our special need children are, I believe, they are affected most. But after all this, our life has changed. We need to be able to be more flexible. You know, you hear the news that we might get another round of COVID-19. So we need to be more flexible in case something comes. The program for school, we need to make sure that learning, that accessibility is there in case something happens. So these all costs, it will impact our budget. Regular going back to school, we need to bring the confidence level for our students, making sure that they are are comfortable, because we are all in a shock right now, and everyone has a really panic moment, like what we're gonna do. We end up cleaning are we gonna wear mask all the time? What would be our distance level when we go back to? So these are really challenging time we are going through. We just have to make sure that safety and security for the children comes first, and making sure that we have a flexible curriculum program and plan in place in case something goes wrong, and to boost our children and teachers confidence level. Also, we need our teachers and administrator also more trained and go through how to cope with this new change we are experiencing.
Okay, Jimmy, do you have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, just part of what I was talking about too was just how this is going to affect the budgets. And I know that the budgets are being handled now prior to town meeting, but this could even impact into the fiscal year 2022 budget. So I guess I'm kind of wondering, I'm not expecting you to have the answers now, but I was just kind of curious on what your approach is generally to handling the need for fiscal responsibility and all the needs of the students, particularly special education, because the budget for that can literally change year to year depending on how many people are in the district.
Okay, Selena, just only because I heard you touch upon the budget, I think you both did, but I just last heard it in my ear. So you can go ahead and take this follow-up.
And
then Michelle.
The main reason I decided to run for the school committee is we need to put children first, basically. The job of a school committee is to make sure that our school system is strong and our kids are ready for the next level. And I believe in financial responsibility and transparency, as well as I believe that our community has a say in this. We need to make sure that how our funds are being allocated and where it's needed. I believe, like I said before, I believe that keeping students first, and making sure that all the curriculums programs are in place for our children. Especially, like I said, the special education is hurt most due to this pandemic, because it's really hard for them to communicate via virtually and get need they need. It's practically impossible, but we are trying to accommodate because we don't have any other option. But after the schools open, we need more attention, more proper planning in place. So in case something happens in future, we are ready. Also, how can we can balance the time we've missed, time student missed, how we can, and also coming year students are going to be new grades will start, new challenges. Like for this year, MCAS was not in place, so we have more challenges there. Our students need to be more prepared. These challenges and SAT coming for. So like I said, we need proper curriculum and plan in place, and this all impacts our budget. And I would hope that we make decision putting our children first. Um, thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I was trying to get your attention, but it's fine. You know what, though? I really shouldn't be cutting you off just of a time limit. These are important subjects. I did want to note, if you read my note, I think your mic's cutting in and out. I don't want to say that on air, but oh well. Just take it a check on that. While Michelle, if you recall the question, please, your response.
Yeah, so the question is about how is COVID-19, the effects of COVID-19 going to affect the budget, and how can we, as a school committee in a town, really deal with that, and what would I see my role? That's kind of my interpretation of the question. In regards to budgets, I'm very familiar with the school budget, having worked with the advisory committee for several years on that, having met for several hours with the superintendent and other members of the school committee and going through that. So I know, or I'm at least familiar with where you can cut and where you can't. One of the things that's really tough with a school budget is that there are certain requirements that you have to have, and that we don't really, as a town, have that much ability to cut. You know, with special education issues, you have to be able to provide those services that are required. So really, in kind of looking at this, I see it as how can we squeeze the most amount of quality out of the dollars that we have? Where are the areas that can be modified, that maybe we can cut back or look at some new ways to do things that can be more dynamic, that can be more adaptable to what is going on now? And that's where I look at it, as sometimes things that we think are really important, when something happens, we kind of have a different look at that. And so that's really the time, is to look at the budget and say, all right, you know, these things we thought were important, but in reality, over the long haul of what's happening right now, we might be able to shift that money to somewhere else. So I really think that we need to put kind of all options on the table, analyze those options, see what pieces out of options fit, and try and kind of pull that together for the future.
Okay, great. So, okay, I think if you're satisfied with that, Jimmy, we want to move on to the next question, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both for your thoughtful answers. So now I'm just kind of curious, both of you were taking out nomination papers before the pandemic really hit. So just kind of circling back to that, what important school issue do you think has kind of gone by the wayside since then, that you would like to be able to focus on once we make it through this pandemic?
Yep. Okay. Oh no, I've already lost track of who the coin flip was. Selena, were you able to fix your microphone? Check with.
So, can you hear me good?
Yep. All right. Well, we're doing back and forth. So go ahead. You take this one first.
As I was meeting people, meeting my neighbors and community members, I wanted to make sure that what challenges are important and what are the challenges we need to focus more. I've noticed that our community is, we are dealing with a lot of different challenges in this 21st century. For example, the issues are very tough. For example, we are dealing with mental illness, hate crime, drug abuse, and safety and security. And we need to make sure that our schools are ready to overcome these challenges. We need to make sure that we have a proper plan in place. We need to have a curriculum in place to overcome these challenges, because it's all comes down to for example, the of a sudden this corona pandemic in front of us. These are another challenge, and after the corona, we deal with this another challenge, how to face after all this. So I think that we need to make sure we have a plan in place to overcome these challenges, and also the challenges we had before. In 21st century, the challenges are a little different. For example, if you look at bully, we have different forms of bullying. We had bullying before. Now we are dealing with more cyber bully, silent bully. We need to make sure that our teachers, our administrators are properly trained to overcome the challenges. Also, our students, these are, our students know, we can identify their issues, so we can properly train them as well.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, Jimmy, do you want to, are you good, or you need Jimmy to repeat the question? Or we're good?
No, thank you very much. So sometimes it hasn't been that long of a time frame, but to try and kind of think back and remember what life was like before COVID-19, it's sort of funny to think that way. One of the things that was really kind of sticking out to me was the whole vaping issue, which is kind of interesting of how it kind of relates with COVID-19. But not just, generalized vaping, but things that were going on within the school systems that I know that the administration was trying to combat, but really giving them enough tools to be able to really combat that, and educating the students as to why these types of things are so bad. I thought it was really important. Having policies in place, having responsibility for the choices that kids make, and the consequences that those choices come about. So that's something that was very important to me, is really supporting the administration on trying to get those things handled, as well as just really looking at new ways to get out all the different options and varieties that were in the school system for new programs. One of the things that I really liked, and this is only from my personal experience, was in 8th grade, they had just changed the curriculum for history, and we're doing government, and we're really utilizing, the teachers were utilizing very dynamic, practical, hands-on type of learning, which I think was absolutely fantastic. And I would like to see more of that, for the kids to really see how what they're learning in the classroom becomes and applies to everyday life, not just your life, but also what kind of work you're going to do. So that type of stuff were things that I was looking at prior to COVID-19.
All right, cool. Jimmy, any follow-up for these?
No follow-up on these ones. These questions I feel like are kind of more just personal, like where you were planning on headed before this happened.
Okay, so we have time for another one. Do you have another one?
Yeah, I got a couple more. So whatever we got time for is fine with me.
As long as if they're willing, let's go. Let's go with Michelle for the answer to this one. But go ahead and ask. Thank you.
Okay. So Michelle, you already had mentioned this earlier, not being really sure on what reopening for schools is going to look like. But what role do you anticipate playing in helping Foxborough schools be safe to reopen in the fall?
I anticipate if I'm elected onto the school committee, of being there to help analyze what all the information that's coming down from all the different sources, There may be some restrictions that are requirements that we have to do as a school system, and there may also be suggestions. I think it's really important for us to look at what other countries are doing, what other school systems that already have opened, and what those challenges, those unexpected impacts that some of these restrictions that we put in place, such as if kids need to wear masks, how is that really going to impact all the kids, but especially kids who might not talk a lot in class? How do teachers know then that if there's a problem with those kids? Is really trying to look at not just the things that we need to put in place to keep the kids safe, but how that's going to impact not only the students, but the teachers, and figure out ways to anticipate those impacts and address them before they become major problems. So I really think being a mediator, working with all sorts of different problems, I've really learned how to look at kind of insolvable problems or things that people think are insolvable, and be able to break them down to their pieces and see what options are practical. And I really like to look at things in a practical way. So that's where I hope I can help.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Selena, same question.
Jimmy, for this is a very important question. I believe that the school committee member serves a very important role, and within the community. Because after my decision as a school committee will impact our children, so we need to make sure that we take the right decision for our children in the community. My ultimate goal is to elevate our school system, improve our school system. So I noticed I have been trying to attend the school committee meeting, and I haven't been because the time sometimes didn't work for me. But I try to attend virtually because they now have a virtual meetings. I've noticed that there is a huge gap. I don't see a lot of our parents, a lot of community members are participating. As my goal would be bring that gap, reduce that gap. We want our parents to participate in this, because if they're not part of this whole process, school committee member won't be able to do this alone. We need teachers, we need community member, we need our parents, we need other areas committee members. We need all of us to be together to overcome these challenges. These challenges are really complex, and we need to make sure that our children are equipped with proper resources and ready to go to the next level.
Okay. Jimmy, do you have any follow-up?
No, if you guys would entertain one more question. I like to ask this when I do my candidate profiles on patches as well. I'm just kind of curious, what's your favorite thing about Foxborough? What inspired you to want to run for school committee in a way?
Well, that's a good question. I'm going to answer. No, I'm just kidding. Let's see how we've been alternating. We'll just keep this pattern we've been doing. So Selena, go ahead and take that one first.
I actually used to live in Mansfield. So when our family grew about 11 years ago, we decided to take closer. And Foxborough was one of my top list. And when we moved here, I really was fascinated. I remember the week I moved in, and that same weekend, we had our Founders Day. I participated in Founders Day. It really, the sense of welcoming, sense of closeness I saw, because everyone was together, everyone was participating and welcoming. I really enjoyed that. And you know, especially in the common, my kids were participating in the, you know, booth, and this is like a really changed my. I really liked it, and I wanted to be part of this because my both of my kids are in the current district, and the challenges they're going through, and I see the challenges. I think I could be a voice for the children, and I am confident that through my uh, ideas, fresh perspective, and focusing on promoting diversity and inclusiveness, I can bring our community to the next level. I think our system, we can improve our school system in the next level.
Great. Michelle?
Interestingly enough, I grew up in Florida, which has a very different setup for schools. It's much more county-based. My high school graduating class was over 700 students. My high school had over 3,000 students. So kids I went to elementary school with, I didn't go to middle school with, and vice versa. So it was a much more transient area. And one of the things that I absolutely love and loved when we were looking at different places to move was the close-knit schools in Foxborough. I'm going to mirror what Selena said, is that Foxborough residents are very welcoming. The residents are very welcoming, the schools are very welcoming, and it has been amazing. What I really like is just that feeling within the schools going up through the years that kids are able to make those connections. You know, one of the things, like my youngest is, you know, really likes band and is doing work with band, and he was really trying to consider whether he would go to the technical school or not. And he's even in middle school, he's been up at the high school, meeting people there, having that connection, and that really, you know, stopped him from wanting to go to another school because of that connection. And I think that that's so important for kids to feel grounded within the community, and feel supported. And not only is Foxborough welcoming, but during COVID-19, we've seen it, that the residents are very supportive of each other. And we've worked really hard, and I think that will continue. So during this, you know, I really looked at, all right, I wanted to be on the school committee. With everything that's happened, will I have the time? Is this still, you know, a top priority? Sat down with my kids and we talked about it, and it was very important. We all determined it's very important for me to continue to run for the school committee. It's important to my kids, and it's important to me to still be part and to be able to contribute, because during times of big change, that is a time where you're able to help and be able to make a contribution. And we want Foxborough to stay very much the same, as well as become dynamic and grow. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Those are both wonderful sentiments.
Can I add? I just thought about that. I would, if may I, and as Michelle was saying, during this difficult time, the way the whole town come together, especially the school system, because I have my cousins and other surrounding towns, the way our school district responded, I would say that it was really excellent. And because, we didn't waste any time, basically, we were able to pick up the kids remotely. So there is no gap between, academically, they are not losing any time. And also, it helps a student busy their curriculum online, even to cope with the stress we are getting by listening to the news and everything. And also the virtually the whole town kept us connected, and which was really good, because like I said, I have other siblings surrounding towns. They were late to take part in. And I'm really grateful to be part of this community, and their excellent school system. But I understand that there are areas to improve. This is why I'm here. I can contribute to the school system with my fresh perspective and different ideas.
Okay, well, since that was a little extra time, I have to be equitable. Michelle, do you have anything else you want to add? I thank you for adjusting your camera too, because Selena, same thing, the sun right in your face.
Right, it's all shifting.
Everyone adjust. Go ahead, Michelle. Is there anything else before? I kind of feel like we're kind of, organically falling into everyone's closing statements here. But let's.
In many ways, what's happened with COVID-19 has shown a lot of the strengths that Foxborough school system has, and being able to be dynamic, being able to ensure very quickly to figure out, okay, what are we going to need to do? How are we going to get kids online? How are we going to ensure that those that don't have what they need to be able to do that? But it also showed parents were jumping in as well, that it's not just administration, that it's not just the teachers. And what I've really liked seeing is teachers being able to, checking in with the parents. And it's not just them on their own, or as parents on our own, trying to handle what's happening. And that's really important, because we as a community need to continue to work together, because nobody has a script for anything that's going on now. And it's all about trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, and rolling with those punches that just seem to keep coming. But the important thing is that the kids don't have all of the tools, the equipment, if you like to say, that we as adults have, and keeping that in mind, and keeping that at the forefront, that education isn't just about information. It's also about supporting and helping provide guidance on how to still have goals, achieve those goals, have accomplishments, and look towards the future. And I think that that's a unique piece that the schools are going to have to keep in mind.
Excellent.
So,
okay. Well, this was an unusual extra segue we went into. We kind of melded, I think I'm going to have to steal a little bit from your closing remarks right now, just to keep it tight and in time. So did you want to just, Michelle, since you're already on right now, did you want to just go ahead and add anything to what you just said?
Sure. So Michelle Raymond, I'm looking to continue the volunteerism that I've already started, and to try and be of service through this challenging times for the school system, but also to really look at, regardless of whether I get on the school committee or not, I intend to keep helping as much as possible, for not just the students, but also the teachers and the administration, and all the hard work that they've really put in. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Selena, if you can keep it under a minute as well, I'm sorry, but you guys did such a great job, but I'm going to put you on the spot for under a minute now. And if you can maybe move a little forward out of the sun, if it's more comfortable for you.
I believe the school committee, as a school committee member, plays a very important role. 7 members basically decides how the school gonna be, and our children 6 or 7 hours a day they spend at school. Practically, they become a minor to an adult in the school. We need to make sure this crucial time. We need to make sure that our children are, trained with proper curriculum, proper policy, so it impacts them. So we can train them properly. And the decisions as a school member, impacts years from now. I want to make sure that all of our children and teachers and the administrator have a proper plan, resources, and tools they need to be successful in the 21st century. And I'm confident that with my creative ideas and fresh perspective and promote focus on promoting our diversity and inclusiveness, I can bring our school system. I can improve our school system to the next level. And there's a powerful quote I would like to add by President Roosevelt. He said that we cannot always build a future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future. Thank you for your time and consideration. And to everyone, thank you, Jaycees. And I remember the election is on June 8th. And I hope you turn your vote this June.
Thank you. I almost cut you off right before you quoted Roosevelt, so but thank you. You went a little, we're trying. Thank you guys so much for your time here tonight. That was very helpful. A couple tech glitches, but I think we're going to keep on keeping on and going. So thank you, ladies, very, very much, and good luck to you both. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Have an excellent night.
And Jimmy, we're going to hang on to you for a bit because when we come back, we're going to later. We're going to just talk with the Foxborough, those candidates for selectmen. Before that, though, we have a very important message from our town clerk. We'll say town manager. Our town clerk, Robert CUTLER. He'll be speaking. We'll have a package rolling in from him discussing all of the important stuff Selena alluded to, which is our election, what date is, and when you can vote. Thank you all, and hang in there. We'll be back.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob CUTLER with the Town Clerk's Office, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about some of the protocols in place for our upcoming annual town election. This won't be like your regular election. We are actually hoping that most voters take advantage of early voting or absentee voting by mail. We've gotten quite a few people who have requested ballots already, and we would be very happy if most of the day was processing by mail ballots. However, the polls will be open to those voters who are interested, and we're taking quite a few safety precautions, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about those. We're using the space over at the Ahern, so precincts 1 and 2 will be in the first gymnasium, now called the new gymnasium, and precincts 3, 4, and 5 will be in the old gymnasium, which is where elections are normally held. The reason for that is for us to take advantage of spacing and traffic flow and limit people's exposure to others. We're going to have one way in and one way out of each gym, and we're going to have plenty of signage so everyone will be aware of where they should be going. We're hoping to limit time in voting areas, and we're limiting the number of voters per voting area to 6 per precinct. The polling areas themselves will be set up a little bit differently with additional spacing and again one-way traffic flow so that we're limiting contact between individuals. You'll notice some differences with the poll workers. They're going to be limited in number and spread out further, and there will be some sneeze protectors in front of each election worker. Voters will be given the opportunity to use their own pen if they would like to do that. But we will have one-use pens available for them, and when they're done voting, they will dispose it in a bin, and we will sanitize those for future use. We are asking all voters to enter the polling places with their own masks. All of our election workers will have the mask and gloves, and we'll have designated areas for voters on their way out. So it'll be easy in and easy out for all the voters. We're trying to adhere to all of the state of Massachusetts recommended guidelines. So social distancing will be in practice. We're going to have areas taped off for the recognizable 6 feet all the way along the gym floor, so they'll be aware of where they should be standing at all times. And we will have plenty of poll workers there to provide direction, to provide information, and answer any questions that voters may have. We're anticipating a pretty good showing for this election. We have a couple contested races with Board of Selectmen, 3 people running for 1 seat, and 2 Board of Housing Authority races, 2 people running for 1 seat in both races. So we're expecting a good turnout. We're hoping about 25%. And based on the early returns of ballots, we think that that's probably a good estimate. If voters don't have masks, we will have additional ones available, but we are asking them to wear their own masks. I think people have gotten used to the whole social distancing and the mask wearing, so we don't anticipate any problems with that. If anybody has any questions about how to obtain a by-mail ballot, they can visit the town website, which is www.foxborough.ma.gov, and the Foxborough is spelled out the long way. On there, they will be able to go to the town clerk's website, and you'll be able to toggle around and find the forms for either an absentee ballot or an early voting ballot. Essentially, for this election, absentee and early voting, a very similar process. The ballots would have to be requested by noon on June 5th, that's Friday before the election, and all ballots have to be returned by 8 p.m. the day of election. We would ask people to either mail the applications in, or there is a night drop box at the town hall where they can drop those in for processing by the town clerk's office. As soon as we get them in, they're processed and mailed out, so you can expect to receive your ballot within a couple of days. As you get closer to election day, I would drop them into the night drop box as opposed to mailing, because you want to make sure they get processed by the voting deadline, 8 p.m. on June 8th. If you have any questions, feel free to call the town clerk's office at 508-543-1208. And we hope to see you at the polls or casting an early voting ballot. Thank you.
Before we do the rest of the roll-ins for the people's statements who couldn't be here tonight, we were lucky enough to have 2 the folks running for the one seat open for the Housing Authority 1-year term here, and they are going to provide their statements and introduction to you, people of Foxborough, about why they should each be on the Housing Authority. We have Kevin Powers and Bethany Robertson here. And without further ado, I'll let them go ahead and do their statements. Let's start with Bethany.
All right. Hello, my name is Bethany Robertson, registered architect and Foxborough resident for the past 5 years. Throughout my career, I've made it a point to focus on the sustainability and resiliency of our built environment. Recently, I've become involved with the new Foxborough Housing Coalition, working together with the Citizens Housing and Planning Association to develop a new plan for affordable housing in town. I also serve on the Metro West Greater Worcester Region's Habitat for Humanity Construction Committee. Affordable housing is very important to me, and it is a key element to sustainability and the future of our town. I am running for a 1-year term on the Housing Authority, which is responsible for managing and maintaining the town-owned housing, as well as ensuring enough housing for those who need it. One point I've heard brought up repeatedly at the Housing Coalition meetings is how unaffordable affordable really is. I hear stories of lifelong Foxborough residents who very much want to stay in town, but don't need all the space of a family home or the upkeep that comes with it. These people often can't afford to downsize in town. Foxborough has an aging population that wants to stay in place. We're also a very attractive town to young families looking to settle down. But there's not enough housing to go around, and prices continue to rise. How can we sustainably grow our town and give back to our senior citizens? We can ensure affordable housing for those who need it. Affordable town-owned housing gives seniors a comfortable and well-maintained place to live, allowing them to downsize and stay in the town they love. This brings family homes back to market and continues the life cycle, keeping Foxborough growing and vibrant. Currently, the Housing Authority is looking to expand the stock of town-owned housing with several potential new build projects. Not everyone realizes how complicated it is to build. There's a maze of building codes and zoning laws, not to mention the difference between good, well-thought-out design and bad design, all of which can be an overload for those who are unfamiliar with the process. No two building projects are exactly alike, and they all have their own challenges. As an architect, my education, training, experience, and skills are your best guide through the entire process. Where you live, work, and play is influenced by architecture. This is not just a question about what is functional or beautiful. Evidence demonstrates that our physical and emotional well-being, as well as our economic, social, professional, and cultural prospects, are shaped by our physical environment. Design can encourage social interaction, promote exercise, reduce stress, and rejuvenate our health. Today, more than ever, our buildings must support our health. With my background not only as an architect, but as one with a focus on sustainability, resiliency, and well-being, I would bring a different viewpoint to the Housing Authority Board, one that offers valuable insight into the right ways to grow our town while protecting what makes it the Foxborough we know and love.
Excellent. Thank you, Bethany. And now we'll hear from Kevin Powers. Kevin?
Hi, I'm Kevin Powers. I'd like to thank the Foxborough Jaycees for hosting this candidates forum. Foxborough is my home. I grew up here and I graduated from Foxborough High School in 1999. I'm running for a 1-year term on the Foxborough Housing Authority. The work of the Housing Authority is vital to ensuring that there is room in our town, not only for those who can readily afford to live here, but also for those who are struggling to make ends meet. Among that population are the elderly, individuals with disabilities, and disabled veterans, all of whom face hardships. The Housing Authority does a great job of maintaining and providing its existing properties to that target population. This is due to the many individuals who become involved with the Housing Authority, each contributing their varied abilities. There may be opportunities for the Housing Authority to develop new properties, including on land off of Walnut Street. In order to move forward with that opportunity, I would like to see Mass DOT or Mass Highway conduct a study of the Route 140 Walnut Street intersection and determine what improvements are necessary to make that intersection safe, whether those improvements would include signals, crosswalks, or other upgrades. Then I would like to see the improvements paid for, either by the developer, the state, or a combination of both. Then I think we'll be in a good position to move forward on the Walnut Street units. I would like to join the Housing Authority and to be part of the group that provides housing to the people who need it most. I'm a practicing attorney with experience in construction litigation, and I was the advisory committee liaison to the Boyden Library trustees during the renovation of the library. This perspective and background will enable me to contribute to the Housing Authority as it deals with state authorities, zoning and regulatory issues, and other questions. I've been volunteering my time to the town of Foxborough for years as a member of the Friends of Camp St. Augustine, the Advisory Committee, the Board of Recreation, and the Founders Day Planning Committee. I respectfully ask for your vote for a one-year term on the Foxborough Housing Authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you guys so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening, and good luck to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We will now take a look at some of the candidates who pre-recorded their statements for you, and then we will move on to the Board of Selectmen Q&A.
Hello, I'm John Mahoney, and I'm running as a candidate for the Foxborough Town Assessor's Office. I want to ask you for your vote and let you know that your vote makes a difference. Just as an example, last year in the town of Canton, the Selectman's office was decided by just one single vote. And so what I'd like to do is introduce myself to you and give you reasons to vote for me. My family has lived in Foxborough over the past several years, and I grew up just over the border in Plainville. So we're very familiar with Foxborough, and we really like living in Foxborough, the community, the people. It's a great place to be. And I hope in any capacity, either elected or just as a resident, I can do what I can to help keep Foxborough an awesome place. The reasons you should vote for me is I'm a very well qualified candidate for this position. The assessor's office is an administrative role which does several things. First, the assessors are responsible for accurately setting the tax values of all properties within the town, and they must work with the town selectmen and the budget set by town meeting to set the town's tax rate so that the budget can be met. They also provide tax relief for certain people, such as the elderly, disabled, or blind. And if a resident or property owner feels that their tax rate is incorrect or their value is incorrect, they can appeal that through the abatement process. So in my past, I served over a 3-year time period for the Town of Franklin Assessor's Office. I got to see the ins and outs of the assessor's office, as well as the yearly processes that they must comply with to meet state law. I got to see abatements, tax relief requests. I got to go through many properties, and I saw how the town sets the property values and rates. And so I'm very familiar with the processes that would go on in an assessor's office. Additionally, I served over a 2-year time period for the City of Boston Zoning Board of Appeals as a decision writer, and I also served in a number of municipal roles, including a 2-year stint at the Town of Plainville Finance Committee and a number of positions in the Town of Canton, which I previously lived in. So I've had the opportunity to see directly how the assessor's office works, how the budgeting process in a town goes, and just the general interaction that's effective between a member of the town's government and its residents. And so I think just in terms of qualifications, that puts me in a really good position to understand this role and work with you as a resident or person within Foxborough who needs to interact with us. Additionally, I have worked over the last 10 years in construction and real estate at a construction supply company. I'm familiar with real estate, which really goes in line with what happens in the assessor's office. And I'm also an attorney, so I'm familiar with state laws, processes, procedures, and all the things that really need to take place to make sure that this office, the assessor's office, is meeting its obligations under state law. So whether you're voting by absentee or mail-in ballot, or you're going into the June 8th election, when you have the opportunity to vote, which I encourage you to do, please vote John Mahoney for Foxborough Town Assessor. Thank you so much. I hope I can work for you.
Hello, my name is Kevin Penders, and I am here today to respectfully ask for your vote for the Boyden Library Board of Trustees. First elected in 2011, I am seeking my 4th term on the board, which is responsible for overseeing the operations and the function of the one town resource that's dedicated to serving each of us as Foxborough residents. I've been privileged to serve the town in this capacity in the development of, securing of, funding for, and construction of our 2015 expansion project. Similarly, I have served as the chairman of the board, as a member of the hiring committee for our director, on the long-range forecast planning committee for the library, and as an ongoing member of our budget team. Prior to my time here in Foxborough, I served 3 terms on the library trustees in Wakefield, Massachusetts. Even though our doors are closed due to the COVID pandemic, the library's role in our community is as important as ever. As we find ourselves close to the public, the libraries continue to reach out through children's online programming, other electronic resources to help facilitate readership and engagement in what would otherwise be a time of isolation. The library's Overdrive, Hoopla, and Canopy offerings allow for subscribers to enjoy books, movies, audio features, and to keep our town connected. Through Facebook, Twitter, and other means, we serve as a resource for town information and community updates. And while our circulation continues to show that our in-person programming is diminished, the need for the library in our community remains as strong as ever. For example, in 2019, we circulated approximately 250,000 titles and items, an amazing volume, and met demand for a community of almost 17,000. And in 2020, even with our closure to COVID, our demand for free resources and online catalogs continues to climb. And so we await anxiously the opportunity to return to more normal times and the opportunity to see you as you come back to the library and engage with exchanged ideas and our fantastic staff. But in the meantime, we remain here for you as the heart of the community, where all are welcomed and all are served. And until that time, I encourage you to continue to wear your mask and read a great book. And consider me, Kevin Penders, for library trustee. Thank you very much for your time.
And we're back. I wanted to take this opportunity to mention other candidates who you will not see here tonight, but who are on the June 8th ballot. And if I mispronounce any of their names, I apologize in advance. I'm just reading these cold. The following positions are for a term of 3 years. We have Daniel A. Smith, who is also running for Board of Assessors against John Mahoney, who you just heard from in the roll. Paul W. Steves is running to be a member of the Board of Health. Jeffrey C. Peterson and Gary E. Whitehouse, the incumbent, are both seeking to fill the 2 seats on the Planning Board. And incumbent Richard M. Pasella Jr. is running unopposed to stay on the Water and Sewer Commission. The 2 people running for Housing Authority for a term of 5 years are incumbent Thomas K. Kelly, and his opponent is Mary M. Seelig. And finally, running for the 1-year term on the Board of Health is Betsy Amabo Allo. Okay, well now let's meet our candidates to fill one seat open on the Board of Selectmen. We have with us this evening Dr. Jack Kersner, Mr. David Coffey, and Mrs. Stephanie McGowan. Ladies and gentlemen, you will have the same format as the school committee duo. This is how it goes. Each candidate can offer an opening statement, an introduction to themselves, and then Jimmy will ask each a few questions, and perhaps some follow-ups. And if you are so inclined, you'll be given a chance to offer some parting words. Because there are 3 of you and a coin flip could not do, I had my son pick your names out of a hat, and Ms. McGowan will go first, then Dr. Kersner, and then Mr. Coffey with the opening statements. From there on out, the questions will be kind of varied in order. 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1 in that regard. If someone kind of goes a little over, I may start to chime in with a off-camera notification, wave, or sign. And I'll try my best not to interrupt anything you're saying. Okay. So without any further ado, I will ask Ms. McGowan to get off mute. And be ready with your opening statement. You may start whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, hello, my name is Steph McGowan, and I am running for a seat on the Board of Selectmen. I'd first like to thank the Jaycees for putting this all together tonight. in such difficult times. I know it's challenging, and we would have hated to miss this 20-year tradition during election season. So first of all, great job. So a little bit about myself. I've lived in Foxborough for 22 years. My husband, Jimmy, grew up here in town, and we have decided to raise our family here. Our children, Ryan and Harley, both attended Foxborough Public Schools and participated in many years of activities in Foxborough. We love this town and all the many friends that we have made here. So, question, so why am I running for selectman? So first of all, it's that love of this community that's driving me. And I'm in a great position right now in my work life, my family life, to share my time and my energy. And another question, why do I think I'd be a great addition to join our current Board of Selectmen? So I've spent the last 3 years on the advisory committee. I absolutely can't stress enough how that experience has been invaluable. It's given me an insight to all facets of town government with a focus on the town budget, how to work with a group of diverse people and truly be able to listen and respect others' ideas and thoughts. So I'd like to take that knowledge and bring it to the next level, which is the Board of Selectmen. What I've learned from numerous volunteer groups, activities, everything we've done as a family, that I've done individually, I feel will help me to keep Foxborough a vibrant community that all generations are proud to call home. So what I would ask you is to pay attention tonight, get to know me, and if you like what I'm about, consider me as your candidate on June 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. She did tell me ahead of time I could call her Stephanie. Just want to make sure everyone is okay with that. Okay, next up would be Dr. Jack Kersner. Jack, you can start with your opening statement when you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jack Kersner, and as you know, I'm running for selectman. First, I want to thank Sophia and the Jaycees for this opportunity to participate in this year's Candidates Night. Regarding my candidacy, this is all new to me. I have no experience in town governance or running for any elected office, not to mention one during a global crisis. However, I do believe that my history gives me a better than fair shot at being a successful selectman, especially with the trauma caused by COVID-19. And here's why. I am a retired psychologist, as you heard. I began Kersner Associates in 1983 as a self-employed solo practitioner. 34 years later, in 2017, I sold the practice, which at the time had grown into a multidisciplinary psychological services practice. Kersner Associates and its 25 or so employees continues to operate under new ownership, name intact, in its 35th year with its home base at 30 Mechanic Street. Now, as to how this correlates with my running for selectman, here's how I see it. In essence, why would a senior psychologist be a good choice for you when voting for selectman? Psychologists, successful ones, normally have a few essential qualities. First, we are trained active listeners, and leading is always a function of how well people are heard. Second, we are skilled analysts, able to thoughtfully take apart a presented problem, an essential tool, I believe, for any sitting selectman. Third, psychologists are very effective trained communicators, able to discuss almost anything with anyone. We are always ready to calmly navigate both ordinary and extraordinary problems like the one we have now. In fact, along with counseling people as a general practitioner, I was also a trauma specialist. I would argue that my clinical experience, not to mention the 3+ decades I spent managing a business, places me in a strong position with respect to dealing specifically with the effects of COVID-19 on our community. The pandemic has been a game changer in every way, as you all know. Finally, and for me, most importantly, psychologists are empathic and compassionate folks. And with the pandemic at hand, I just don't see how these traits at the selectmen's table are a bad thing. As mentioned, I bring one more crucial upside to the job, my 30+ years of business experience with no formal business education, yet Kersner Associates continues to thrive. Personally, my wife Judy and I have lived in Foxborough for 20 years. 2 of our 7 grandchildren are in the Foxborough schools, and 1 graduated from Foxborough High School a few years back. Retirement. It's been a challenge, given that I held the same job for almost 35 years, but I finally found my way in volunteering. I've been driving veterans to medical appointments, mentoring inmates at the Norfolk County Correctional Center in Dedham, and tutoring 3rd graders in the Walpole schools. And now I'm running for selectman, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Kersner.
Thank you.
Mr. Coffey, you're up. And I would ask, again, if you're not speaking, if you could mute. This is the fun of Zoom. Mr. Coffey, go ahead whenever you're ready, sir.
Good evening. First, I want to thank Sophia and the Jaycees for their tremendous work in putting this together. My fellow friends and citizens of Foxborough, we are losing our sovereignty over our town. Forces trying to take away our ability and our authority to make choices for ourselves are coming from without, not within. But some within our community in high places are being fooled into thinking that they are doing something good for us. All we ask from our town government is to give us the opportunity, the open portal to unity, to practice freely our God-given rights and the Bill of Rights which proceed from them, which allow every other citizen to do the same. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are but 3 of the myriad rights which each one of us were given before conception. And these rights are precious to each one of us. However, our power, our ability, and our authority to practice these rights is being eroded more and more. This is not happening throughout the nation and this state in particular only, but it is happening in our town also. We as citizens of Foxborough must be diligent concerning what our town hierarchy is doing. We must take back our town before we lose our town's personality, our town's heritage, and our town's simple beauty, which sets us apart from any other. We are not just a place on a map or a pleasant stop along the highway, but we are a community with importance and with heart. Liberty is the God-given right, the ability and the authority to make right choices in life for ourselves and for the good of the whole community. This means that our town government must not take from us the right choices that we must make ourselves for the good of all citizens of Foxborough. Without the ability and the authority to make right choices, we are left with anxiety and a sense of emptiness and non-importance. This is a form of tyranny. We are all indispensable as far as I am concerned. We must not allow our town government to make decisions that affect our ability and authority to practice liberty. We need to be interested in what our town government is doing. Foxborough is our town. We own it, and no one else outside the boundaries of this town can claim this. I am running to be a selectman for our town, for us, that I may have a hand in directing the town in the way that is satisfactory to all, not just the few, but the many. Many decisions have been made not respecting each citizen of the town, but out of a personalized, perceived need in the mind of some that does not benefit the whole population, men, women, and children. This is why these taxes are getting higher and higher. This is why some of our town's government have been narrow visioning, seeing only their own place and not respecting the rest of us. Someone asked me when I questioned the raise in taxes, why don't we wait on the taxes until we get the debt paid? I said, good idea, but why, if you are trying to pay the debt, are you spending more than you need to spend? The reply was, good question, but the question went unanswered. We need to keep an eye on the budget, especially on the expenses. Even our rainy day fund is getting robbed for extra money to pay for things. We do not need a bureaucracy in our town government. One very important action has to be taken by the citizens of this town. More of us need to come to the town meeting and stay and go through and make decisions concerning all of the items.
Thank you, Mr. Coffey. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. When I am hopefully elected selectman, I will be your freedom watchdog. I will be your liberty watchdog. And anything I see, anything I hear coming from higher up, I will question, because I will not sit by and watch one of our right to choices, right to the right choices, be taken away from us. I have always been against that. So thank you, and I trust to have your vote. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Coffey. Appreciate it. All right. So now we're going to just get into the question and answer period. Jimmy Jimmy Bentley from the Foxborough Patch is here, and he will ask each of you the same question. We're going to start off with Dr. Kersner. You'll go first in responding. Ms. McGowan, Mr. Coffey next, and then Stephanie. All right. So Jimmy, go ahead whenever you're ready.
All right. Thank you, Sophia, and thank you all for being here. My first question is just with COVID-19 impacting municipalities across the state and affecting local budgets, what do you think will be the most important thing for you to do in your first year on the board to help residents get the services they expect?
Well, I think the answer obviously will be different for the three of us. In my case, as I've said before, I don't have any experience in town governance. I don't know the budget, but I will. So my first order of business would be to be mentored and to learn as much as I can about the budget, both in terms of income and expenditures. So that would absolutely be step one. And there's no question that COVID-19 has turned things upside down. The budget will look very, very different. I'm sure of that. It has to be researched well, carefully thought out, and I would rely upon the folks that are already on the board and know the budget well to teach me everything there is to know so that I can be a team player in that regard.
Okay, any follow-up with on that question, Jimmy, for him?
Well, the follow-up is probably going to be similar on all of them, but basically the follow-up that I have, Sarah, is just so I know that you're not on the board right now and you're going to be taking the time to learn that budget. But this isn't just going to be something that is, from all that I'm hearing, affecting this budget. Is very well could affect the tax revenue going into the fiscal year 2022 budget for next July as well. So more specifically, I'm just kind of curious, how do you plan to, what's going to be your approach with balancing like fiscal responsibility with making sure basic needs are met, like school, public safety, et cetera?
Okay, that's still to you, Dr. Kersner, and then the same question will then go to Mr. Coffey.
It's probably a function of what I did for a living, but I'm very, very concerned about the effects emotionally, psychologically on the community at large. It's huge, and I'm not sure how it would work, but there would certainly need to be attention to that. And I know it's difficult to connect that need with budgetary needs, but in fact, it does. For example, I think that one piece to the puzzle that should be added is some kind of coalition of the mental health providers in the community, where people band together, where pro bono services are rendered. Obviously, if things are pro bono, there wouldn't be a line item in the budget. So it has to be carefully looked at. You asked a question, or you referenced taxes. And again, I'm not sure exactly how that would play into the issue of managing the budget, but it certainly does. And again, I defer to the fact that this is a learning curve that I'll take on, and I'll take it on day one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Okay, I believe per my numbering system, Mr. Coffey's next. Do you need maybe just repeat the question, Jimmy?
Absolutely. So, David, the question that I asked was, with COVID-19 impacting municipalities, towns, cities across the state, and affecting local budgets, certainly here in Foxborough as well, what do you think will be the most important thing for you to do is your first year as a selectman in order to take that on?
I think we need to go over every item, and we need to be fiscally responsible. If there are any places where we can cut the budget, then I would do it. I would not hesitate to do it, because, you know, we can't keep going into debt. And you know, fiscal responsibility, like I say, that's the most important thing that should guide our spending. Yes, we need to take care of our firemen, our policemen, our teachers. But, you know, a lot of this other stuff, like in the town manager's office, we can cut a little bit there. Nobody's going to die. I would say also that there are other areas that we need to look at and see if we can't get more done well for a little bit less, instead of just, you know, going with the one we like. So, yeah, I think it's very, I think that's the answer, really, because otherwise we'll keep spending and spending and spending and spending and getting ourselves further and further away from where we need to be. And that is financially responsible and solvent. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Jimmy, do you have any follow-up for Mr. Coffey on that, or we're good?
No, I think he answered.
He pretty much said that was my answer, right? Okay. Stephanie, you're next. Jimmy, if you could also please repeat the question one more time. Thank you.
Of course. Hi, Steph. So with COVID-19 impacting cities and towns across the state, what do you think is going to be the most important thing for you to do in the first year? There's going to be budget challenges with this, certainly.
Well, I'll tell you, Jimmy, I've been very vocal the last 3 years that I've sat on the advisory committee. I've been very vocal about us spending in a fiscally responsible way, even before COVID-19 hit us. Now, with that being said, now that it has hit us, there's going to be a huge impact on the budget. And it won't be that budget, this year's budget may be hit, next year's budget, and it may trickle down for a few more years. I mean, if I had a crystal ball in front of me, I would be able to predict it. But I will tell you that, town receipts are going to take a huge hit. The hotels, the restaurants, we rely on the meals tax, the hotel taxes, even just what happens when the governor opens up. Everything's not coming back the way it was. They're going to be, they're not going to have the same numbers. It's going to be social distancing. Hotels, restaurants aren't going to be let the same amount of people come in. So I would say that the budget really needs to be looked at line by line. There's no budget that can't be cut. And we all live in this town. We all want good things. We want nice things. But this is going to be impacting to everybody, all the residents. People are hurting with taxes now. I can't even imagine if they've lost their job or they just haven't been working during this. So yeah, my first thing I would be taking my experience from AdCom and how I know that budget, and would be sitting down with the town manager, with the finance director, as well as the other board members and advisory committee, because these are all the committees and boards that will present a recommendation to the townspeople. And more importantly, people need to come to town meeting because the residents vote the budget. And so if you're unhappy with spending, you need to come, work with everybody. And as a group, we'll get through this. Absolutely, as a group.
Thank you. Jimmy, do you have any follow-up?
Yeah, just as an advisory board member, I'm just kind of curious on your opinion on the initial proposed budget that had gone on a week or two ago now.
You mean the revised budget?
Yeah, the revision.
Yeah, thrilled. I had to step down from advisory committee once I had pulled papers and decided to run for Board of Selectmen. So at the beginning of this season, there was lots of discussions about the budget. And unfortunately, I had to step down from the table, but doesn't mean I haven't been paying attention. And my campaign is about fiscal responsibility and how we spend the money and what is going to keep people in this town. Because people who have grown up here, they're finding they can't afford to stay here. And that's very concerning to me. So what I would say is that I was thrilled to hear that from the town manager down to the Board of Selectmen, down to advisory committee, that everybody got together and decided to cut back some of the items that were to be in next year's budget. And I was thrilled to hear that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And just, wow, it's like you have a timer in your head and you got that down. All right. So Jimmy, let's move on to the next question for everybody. And the order per my numeric dice here. It's 3, 2, 1, which means it goes David, then Jack, and then Stephanie.
Okay. So, of course, when you guys were initially pulling out nomination papers, the election was supposed to be earlier. There hadn't been a pandemic that hit yet. So I was just kind of curious because I know a lot of those ideas that you guys maybe have thought about before might have gone to the wayside given the state of the world right now. So I'm just kind of curious when this pandemic is over, is there anything in particular that you want to focus on as a selectman?
And David, that's you first, sir.
Well, one thing I think is that we begin to get together again slowly, because this scare tactic that they came up with in the NIH, it shouldn't have happened at all. They know better. They know better than to make people wear masks when they know that it's a stressor. It's a stressor that causes anything that you have in you. If it's awakened, it begins to circulate and circulate with every breath you take. And it affects your life. It makes you feel like I'm helpless. I've got to do this because, if I don't, something's going to happen. And that, and that kind of fear is actually worse than wearing the mask. It's really something how people have been hurt. There have been a lot of suicides in the nation because of it. I don't know if there have been any around here or not, but every one of them is sad. And there have been a lot of death, but there's only been one, as far as I know, here in Foxborough. And it wasn't even because of COVID-19. It was because of something that they had before. And so, we just need to love one another as citizens of this town and make it enjoyable again.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Jimmy, any follow-up there?
Yeah, with this question, I was trying to segue away from COVID-19 a little bit. Prior to this pandemic happening, when you were first giving in your nomination papers and stuff like that, what kind of was going through your head? What kind of things did you want to focus on with the town before this hit?
Oh, well, finding ways to bring all of the generations together. Not seniors be seniors and youth be youth and middle age be middle age, but that we could learn to communicate with one another, specific needs that we have and stuff like that. And, just love one another so that we can work together more wholesomely, so that all the things that are threatening, like seniors, how they love it living in their own homes, but it's coming to a point where they won't be able to afford it if taxes get much higher. And the same with youth. You know, there are a lot of youth in this nation that are leaving the cities. And the reason why is because the taxes are going up. And we don't want that kind of a situation to happen here, where people have to leave because they can't afford to live here. And we got to keep one another in focus. You know, when we pray for our town, we need to see our town rising above these problems. And when we serve one another, like we do little things for one another here and there, you know, every bit of it counts. And I would just like to make more available where all of the people can come together and communicate.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jimmy, I think that answered the first part of the question. So
That answered.
Yeah.
Just
So now, same question to Dr. Kirsner. Jack, or go ahead, Jimmy. Sorry.
yes, just because David had brought up a point about the mask too, and I know that's something that there's a lot of varying opinions on. So I would like both of you to touch upon that as well. But
Okay, good. Yeah, give him the questions in the order you want to.
I'll give you the.
Can. It's just to refresh everyone's memory. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So that first question was, what important town issue do you think has gone to the wayside during the pandemic, and how do you intend to approach it? And by the wayside, I don't mean that it was just simply forgotten or anything. It's more just you were filling out your nomination papers before you were going to run. So basically, kind of like when this pandemic is over, what was like a key thing that you wanted to focus on in your term?
Sure. Thanks for the question. So before the pandemic, when I took papers and made the decision to run, the primary motive was I found myself spending a lot of time complaining about what was over the years in the town, although it's been a very good experience and we have no intentions upon leaving. I was probably the average resident who never went to meetings, let other people take the helm, make the decisions, and I'd sit back and be on the golf course at Foxborough Country Club with my friends, and we would have some fairly negative things to say about the way things ran. So when I found myself doing that, that's not a good thing. So it was time to step up. I had retired a couple years ago, and rather than just talk the talk, I decided to walk the walk. So that was what triggered it. That was the motive. And then when I thought about what needs to happen, it had all to do with the other night or last night when we had the meeting with the Republican Town Committee. I thought that Mr. Coffey and Steph made some very good points, and they're really connected to what I think I would like to do as selectman. Mr. Coffey mentioned about how the residents of Foxborough own the town. Steph mentioned how I think what she was saying was that people need to get up off their butts and get to town meeting and take part in the town. If you want influence, there's a way to do it. There's a vehicle through which it can happen. And I buy it. I get it now. And I'm all in on that. And I appreciate both of their comments last night. It really is where I'm at on it. So getting people involved. I have full intentions from the first day to start visiting small businesses, institutions, schools, churches, finding out what people need, what they want, if that's the responsible thing to do. That would be a great thing to do. As far as masks go, by the way, I'm not sure exactly what your question is, but I'm very clear in my opinion about masks. I think they're a good thing, a very good thing. And that's based upon my own research. As I've read online, I've watched television, and I always take things with a grain of salt. I am a researcher at heart. I pay attention to statistics, and for now, I buy it. And I would put mine on right now if I could.
Okay, no, that's basically exactly the question I had. It's just something that I know I've heard from varying opinions on, and since that was brought up, I just thought that it was fair that anyone maybe an opposing viewpoint could chime in on that.
But I do appreciate you not wearing your mask now, Dr. Kersner, because it would be it'd make it really difficult to hear you.
Yeah.
All right. So same question. Are you all set, Jimmy?
Yes, I'm all set. Thank you, Jack.
Same question.
Stephanie, I'll reread the question for you. So the question was, what important town issue do you think has, through no fault of the town's own, kind of gone by the wayside during the pandemic? Maybe it's something that you had been passionate about when you were filling papers. I just kind of was looking to segue past the pandemic and just see something that maybe you wanted to focus on outside of that.
Sure, Jimmy. So I might repeat myself just a little tiny bit because when I decided to pull papers, they're very similar. I got involved with town government and then found my way on the advisory committee for exactly what the gentleman had just said, to get involved. Rather than just complain, do something about it, learn, get educated. So when I took out my papers, I kind of said, okay, let's prioritize, what are a few of the things that you really want to make a difference with? So I've already mentioned about moving Foxborough forward fiscally responsibly and about people being able to stay in this town. Let me touch a little bit on the seniors, and I've talked to a lot of seniors, and it's heartbreaking to hear that they can't even downsize into a home. There's nothing for them, and they can't afford the homes they're in. And so just to try to keep people who want to stay in town, so that was a priority for me. The smart economic growth. The downtown area, we've been, there's been for years, we've been trying to revitalize downtown, and I'm all for that. But with that being said, I didn't grow up in this town, but I've been here for a long time, and I know a lot of people and how important that town common is to people who grew up here. And we want to maintain, Foxborough is a small town. Sometimes we get lost in that, because we have an NFL stadium in this town. But Foxborough is a charming town, and I want to see the character and our identity stay. But with that, economic growth, because we do want nice things, and we have to have receipts coming in. So, and then the last thing I said to myself was, I really wanted to work side by side with the town manager, department heads that I've had the opportunity to meet over the last 3 years, and the other members of the Board of Selectmen to make a difference. And to everybody has opinions, and that's what makes it wonderful, because we have different views, different opinions. If we can sit down and discuss these, good communication, respect for each other, I think together we can figure this out. So like I said, I might have repeated just a little tiny bit, but those were the 3 things that were in my head when I was pulling papers. To touch on the masks, it's very controversial. People are fighting for their rights, and if they say they don't want to wear a mask, I agree with Jack. I think it's important. I think, at least for now, there's so much unclear about this virus. They're saying you can get it, and then if you did, maybe you won't get it again. Maybe you will. It's this. The symptoms change day by day, week by week. I will tell you that I do know some people who have been directly affected by this virus. And with that being said, there's nothing wrong with erring to caution, and if we're gonna protect people and protect the people we love and our friends and our neighbors, I just say I'm all for it. I mean, we decided not to hold signs on the common. You know, for as many years as I've been involved, you know, holding signs for other candidates, for school committee, for board of selectmen, all the different positions in town, that's a great time. You get to be up there. It's fun. You get to talk. People get to come up to you, meet you, ask you questions. And it's not the same. And you have to, you know, for me, I decided not to do that because I want to err with caution. So as far as the masks go, I think it's a good idea too.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
So,
Did you combine them all into one? Those two questions in one, that worked out?
Yeah, I can multitask.
A lot of what you were talking about actually segues into my next question, though, which was about development. I remember like a few months back, there was a spirited debate between some residents on how to develop downtown, and a lot of that was based on the brew pub with Shoveltown potentially going to the firehouse. I just remember there being a lot of opposing views on that. So I'm kind of just wondering what everyone's approach is to new business and development and balancing that with the small town character of Foxborough.
That's a great question. And I'm gonna, Stephanie, since you're already up and just happens to be the next in order, you are gonna take this one first as well. So go right ahead.
Yeah, I'm all for developing downtown. With that being said, there's a very fine line between keeping the identity, the character, the small time charm of our community. And so I feel like our selectmen were, you know, they're doing their best to bring development downtown, but I also do feel that the people need to be heard. And yeah, there was a lot of controversy. I wish maybe, I don't know, maybe it just wouldn't have been fast enough for people. You know, they want to get projects going and moving, but if I was sitting on that board, I absolutely feel like it would be my responsibility to listen to the people who have lived here their whole lives, people who haven't been here as long, and just make sure we're making the right decision for everybody. So yeah, that's a tough question, Jimmy. I wish I could answer it I wish I could answer it better. I don't feel like anything wrong was done by what our board did or our town government. But with that being said, there's a lot. That's a complicated one. It really is. And you know what? If I'm elected, when things like that come up, I will just make sure I can get as educated as I can and do the best I can to make a good decision. That's all we can do.
And then you make a good point with the people having to live here, with people living here having a say. So that kind of adds to like a follow-up question for you. Follow-up in this case would be, what would your approach to transparency be on that, with making people aware of these things so that more people's voices are being heard?
All right. Well, I'm not sure if I completely understand the question. I mean, as far as transparency, I'm all for it. You know something? When you sit on a committee in this town, a board, especially an elected committee or a board, you have a responsibility to the citizens that have put you there, and they have a right to know exactly what's going on. And I am all for transparency. I'm not sure if I understand the transparency as far as pertaining to downtown, what already took place, or were you?
Oh, no, I wasn't insinuating anything at all.
Right.
I was just your personal.
Oh, I didn't mean to put words in your mouth either. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Just like your personal approach to transparency, whether that be like via social media or like being available through phone calls, like stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, you know something? If you're not prepared to put yourself out there, Over the years, I've developed a much thicker skin than maybe I had when I was younger. And if you're going to put yourself out there, up and sitting on the stage at town meeting, then you have to be prepared to answer to the people who've put you there. So yeah, unfortunately, it's not easy. It's not. People will say it's a thankless job, and sometimes it can be. But I think for me, it's going to be rewarding. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. Same question, if you could repeat it, is for, what am I doing? 132. So David, you're next.
Okay. Hey, David. So, a few months back, and really it's more than that. It's been conversation for a while, but there was a spirited debate between some residents on how to develop the downtown, and just probably one of the most highlighted ones of that in the news anyways was with the proposed brew pub at the old firehouse and the lot of Keating Funeral Home. So I was just kind of wondering what your approach to new development would be in Foxborough.
Okay, and David, if you could just keep it in the 2-minute range. You got that? Okay, great.
Yep. I believe that the citizens of Foxborough need to come together and decide what they want their community to look like. There's such a thing as synergy where you can work together to come out with the best for both. We don't need to argue and we don't need to fuss. We need to understand one another. It's called empathy. And it needs to be done because only arguing with one another and fighting with one another, that won't solve anything. The downtown area is very special to a lot of people because it holds the whole personality of the community. And therefore, we just can't go and say, well, the people want this and the people want that. But you got to work together. And then when things come to the selectmen to decide, I wouldn't allow a decision to be made. I would try my best not to allow a decision to be made without the complete input of the community. And then working it out together so that we can come about with the best solution for all. Because doing things on a dime, it's not good a lot of times because you're not considering the whole community. You're not considering all of the citizens. And that's important. We need to consider all of the citizens in the decisions that we make. And I'll bet that a lot of the decisions we make on the Board of Selectmen will end up not being made at all because we must, before we make the decision, understand the citizens of our town and why they're for something and why they're against things. Because it's not enough just to be bureaucratic and say, well, this is what we're going to do.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Thank you, David. You talked a lot about empathy and how that's important even when people disagree with each other. What's one way that you would try to make people come together?
Listen not only to the words spoken, but the heart. Because that's where you're going to find the reality of the situation in people's lives. You're not going to always find it in their words. But if you listen, you will hear the real reason. You will hear the real fact. You will hear the real need in a person's life. That's why it takes a lot of love to be a good leader.
Great. Thank you. That's lovely. Okay. Now you did change up the questions there a little bit, Jimmy. So I'm going to give Dr. Kersner, Jack, a chance to answer the original question, and then I think follow up on the same empathy question, if that's okay with you. And Stephanie, if you want to weigh in on that, you can as well, because you went on or transparency, or a little bit of both. Empathetic transparency. How about that?
However you want to do it. I was just trying to connect the follow-ups to.
No, you did it. That was all great. I just want to make sure everyone feels without going too over, that they're being heard. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So Jack, here was the original question.
Thank you.
Prior to the pandemic and a few months back, there has been a spirited debate between some residents on how to develop downtown. Probably one of the most prominent examples of that was some of the disagreements between some residents regarding the brew pub proposed at the old firehouse. I was just kind of in general wondering what your approach to new business and development in Foxborough would be as a selectman.
Sure. Little background. So with something like COVID-19, some good comes out of the bad on occasion. And for me, it was the opportunity to get out of 35 years of being in an office downtown on Cocasset Street, Mechanic Street, and Bird Street for 3 offices in 35 years, and actually walk downtown. So my dog and I probably 25, 30 times took a mile or two through the streets, Granite Street and Mechanic and Baker Street and the Rock Hill Cemetery, which I didn't even know existed, and found unbelievable beauty, architecture, and history. So whatever attitude I had about downtown, it's changed. And I think there needs, this is my opinion, and my opinion may or may not matter. Really what matters is what the town collectively thinks. But my opinion is if we can keep the character somehow, some way, keep it. It's what identifies the town. It's an amazing place. And if people get out of their cars and walk the streets that are adjacent to downtown, they'll see things that they wouldn't see otherwise. So in terms of places like the brew pub, I guess I'm all for it, assuming the architecture is right, the financing is right, and the people want it. I think there needs to be some kind of survey, some kind of collection of data so that we know, selectmen know, the town government knows what the community wants. And in general, that's my take on things. What the majority wants, that's what we work for, assuming it's viable.
Thank you. And then, just as a follow-up, I don't know if you either wanted to touch on how you would communicate that with citizens as these type of projects are considered as far as a transparency perspective, or if you wanted to touch on David's point regarding empathy with people that you may disagree with. So you can touch on both of those really, however you decide there.
Go back for a moment to the first one. Restate that once again.
So the first point was when I had asked Steph about transparency with regards to decisions like this. So whether that be besides just like a public meeting, whether that be other avenues such as like social media, phone calls. I'm just kind of wondering what your approach to transparency is.
All of it and any of it. All of it or any of it. I think that given what I did for a living, it was all about being transparent. The moment you are not, you were dead in the water. So this is all about being straightforward and times blunt. And that's how you become an effective selectman. You need to listen to what people want and be unafraid to speak your piece. So that's transparency. As far as empathy goes, I can go on and on about it. I did it for a long time. I understand the difficulties that people experience. Maybe because that's who I am, or maybe because I spent so many years in very intimate conversations with folks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks. Only because Stephanie didn't get to answer the empathy question, though I have a feeling everyone's going to be about the same. If you don't mind, I just want to let you have a chance to answer that as well, just to because this organically flew out of the conversation. Just make sure you're comfortable with that. Go ahead, Steph. You have an answer for that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like the gentleman just said, yeah, I mean, empathy, compassion, respect. You know, it's all about communicating. People getting together, and no one is going to always agree with the decision that's been made, and that's probably why there are 5 selectmen. So you have 5 different opinions, and you hope between the 5 of you get it right. And there are times that you're not going to get it right. You can only do the best you can, but like the guy said, I mean, I consider myself a very caring, compassionate person. I would probably stop and talk and listen to somebody in the grocery store for an hour about something going on around town that maybe I know about. And so yeah, I mean, it's unilateral between all of us. I mean, it's part of the job. If you want to take this position, it's part of it.
Great. Thank you. I think due to time constraints, I think that's about it for the question part. Jimmy, is there anything you were just itching to ask that you wanted? If we can get really quick responses out of the candidates? Is there anything else?
Just as kind of a quick thing, I did this with the school committee candidates. It's something I like to just have out there because I know people that are running like you guys are passionate about your communities. So I was just kind of wondering what your favorite thing about Foxborough is.
Oh, that's a good one. And I don't know, David, you go first. I'm just randomly picking.
Okay, may I have the question again?
Yeah, I'll just repeat it, Jimmy. It's Jimmy wanted to know, what is your favorite thing about Foxborough?
Oh. It's just the simplicity of the community, the loveliness, and the way the people seem to come together, with friendliness and willing to help. And it's just got a solemn beauty about this community that it just grows on me more and more. And it blesses me. It's a real blessing to live here. I haven't been here that long, only about 10, 11 years. But it didn't take long for me to learn to love this community and to get involved whenever I could to help people and to see their eyes light up when a need was met. And I long to do that for the rest of my life because that's just who I am. So it's just the loveliness and the personality of the community itself. All citizens together as one. There can be
Very good.
nothing better.
Sorry. Each time that's a lovely sentiment. Thank you, Mr. Coffey. Steph, can you, same thing, I guess. Just
Say everything? No, just about it.
yeah, ditto.
So I grew up a couple of towns away in Stoughton, a little bit bigger town than Foxborough. And, great childhood, loved Stoughton. When Jimmy and I Jimmy grew up here. So when we decided that we would, live here, raise a family here, I guess I started bleeding blue and gold, instead of black and orange. So it's, something, this community, there is just something special about Foxborough, whether it's happy times or not so happy times. There's just never a time that somebody in this town needs something that people just don't rally together. And so when there's something great going on, it's a great community. But it really means something when things aren't going well for somebody, just how people pull together. Like David said, I'm happy that this is where we decide to live. I'm happy this is where my children grew up. I hope they continue to stay in this community. And I'm hoping that my husband Jimmy and I will be seniors here. This is it. We're not going anywhere else. So yeah, it's a great community, great place to live.
Great, thanks. And just to be clear, she's speaking of her husband Jimmy, not our questioner Jimmy. Just to make sure that's all clear to everybody's eyes. We know. I'm just joking. And Dr. Kersner, just same question. I think you've each kind of touched upon it a lot, this evening over and over again, but just to reiterate one more time. And then this is almost kind of acting like a closing statement, but we're still going to have to ask you to do those. So go ahead, Dr. Kersner.
Favorite thing about Foxborough? Right.
Yes.
So obviously there's a lot of favorite things. There's Founders Day, and there's the schools, and there's the Common, and the history. The YMCA is one of my favorite places. The food pantries, all of the institutions. But hands down for me in 20 years, no doubt, it's the people. Unbelievable. Wonderful, wonderful people. And that's it.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you. You're welcome. Well, that'll do it for the question and answer session. Jimmy, great questions. Really brought out, I think, a lot of great answers. Thank you so much for being here with us again tonight. And wow, I'll just hang on in, but I'm just going to say thank you and good night to you right now. But hang on in there. And next and finally, we have our closing statements. If everyone's okay with doing that, I feel like it is an option. But in this case, because we are running a little long, I do want to ask that you please try to keep them a bit brief. Let's just get in there with a nice brief and perfunct closing statement, and we'll get through this all. And ahead of time, I'm just going to thank you all for being here. It's been great, great stories, great listening, great answers, and thank you. But let's start with now I've lost my order because we had an extra question there. So I'm going to just randomly go with Dr. Kersner. You start because I just threw a number in the air and it came down.
Thank you. Recently, I was asked by a friend what my goals would be as selectman. I stopped and realized I hadn't given it much thought because, quite frankly, I don't know what the problems are. As I said, this is all brand new for me. So how could I set goals? I thought to myself, well, I've got to get some goals. And I said to my friend, I'll have to get back to you on that one. I told him I'd see him soon and uncomfortably walked away and headed for my car. When I got home, I told my wife what had happened and how unsettling the exchange was. She said to me, "You're the most goal-oriented person I know. You're kidding me, right?" But I wasn't. So a bit stressed by it all, I put the leash on my dog, who always hears me out without judgment, and we went for a walk so that I could sort this out. Long story short, it came to me. In my thoughts, I went to what I know and looked at what I believe was the single most important principle I believed in for my practice, for my business. And it was this: no matter what the problem is, two heads are most always better than one. Plain and simple, it's two people, always better than one. Business too, business will run better when people are truly heard. And in my practice, It was all about that principle. Two people consulting, collaborating, finding a roadmap to success. Good leadership in a good town government can't help but be better off when people are heard, respected, and appreciated. So here it is, my goal. When and if I get the job of selectman, I want to engage as many residents of Foxborough as often as I can, to hear them, to listen to what they want, to be a vehicle through which they can voice their concerns, to encourage their involvement in community. That's my starting point. My candidacy is my first step to not just talk the talk. It's time to walk. I want to thank my wife and my dog Frankie for leading the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just did a random flip of a object in my office here to decide between the other two. And next is Mr. Coffey. You go next for your closing statement.
If I am elected selectman, I will be a learner, a listener, and a leader. I will report to you, the citizen, when I hear anything that is to be decided. Then together we can work. No matter what happens in our town government, you can trust me to give everything that comes before me the liberty test. And if liberty is lost in anything, you will have a representative on the Board of Selectmen who will not be intimidated, who will not be lax in my duty to see that your liberty is not diminished. I promise you this. I will bring to this task all of the resources and all of my skills in leadership and teamwork, but I will not tolerate the loss of liberty for any citizen who is obedient to the law of decency and the law of order. I am faithfully David Henry Coffey, which means a beloved leader of the victorious ones. May we, the citizens of Foxborough, forge a path into the future full of brightness of vision and wholeness of love for one another. Always victory.
Thank you, Mr. Coffey. And Steph, we'll wrap it. We'll wrap it up with you, please, at your leisure. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I guess I'm going to just start out with saying that I've lived my whole life volunteering and giving back to my community. Both myself and my husband's parents instilled that in the two of us. And now we're passing that down to our children. So what I want to say is that I feel like this is my next step. Kind of like Jack was just talking about what the light bulb moment was. You know, my time on an advisory committee just opened my eyes to how the town government really works, how the budget works. And that experience was worth its weight in gold as far as I'm concerned. And I just think that, you know, that's what's led me to this next step. I'm very grateful to have sat on that committee, worked and discussed, I mean, for hours, late nights, 11 o'clock, us talking about the budget and warrant articles and, you know, agreeing, disagreeing. So I'm looking forward to sitting on the Board of Selectmen and having that communication. And for me, it's, I don't know, it's about wanting to make a true difference. And, you know, right now, okay, so, you know, I'm a longtime resident here, a parent, a volunteer. I'm certain that I'm a very strong candidate for the Board of Selectmen. And what I want to do is ask people to consider to vote for me and give me a chance to show you what I can do. And I'm pretty confident I will make a difference. And so, you know, the election's on June 8th. And if anyone has any other questions for me that they didn't see tonight or wants to know what I'm about, reach out. I have a Facebook page, you know, I'm in the book, you know, yeah, I want to be your next member of the Board of Selectmen. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all of you. That closes it. I want to thank, once again, I want to thank Jimmy Bentley for the Foxborough patch. And thanks again for being here tonight, everyone. Mr. David Coffey, Steph McGowan, Jack Kersner. Really great. And I appreciate you all being here. And good luck to you all.
Thank you.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a wrap for us tonight. Big thanks once again to Foxborough Cable Access, to Mike Weber, Lauren Bitar, for partnering with the Jaycees every year on this event. Different venue this year. We're hoping maybe next year we'll be back live in the studio. But just like every year, this program will be rebroadcast on this channel up until Election Day. And please see the FCA programming schedule for show dates and times. You may also view this program on their website, fcatv.org. Did I say that right? I hope so. And finally, we'd like to thank you, the viewer, your audience at home, for tuning in at any given time this airs, and thank you for taking an active role in the upcoming election. We think if you're watching this program, you care, and you're going to make an informed decision, and we hope that this has helped you become more informed. And as everyone's mentioned a few times, again, the election is June 8th, but you are able to vote early, and if you already voted, oh well. But you can vote early, but you can't vote often. And June 8th, and as everyone else has also mentioned, the town meeting is June 15th. It's still scheduled to be June 15th, and everyone here echoed this tonight. It's how we vote as a town. I'm not sure how it's going to be handled this year, but I've gone to quite a few. Sometimes they go very late. But it's always interesting, and it's one of the few towns that still exercises that form of government, and I think we should appreciate it. And this is me on my little soapbox here. I was inspired by all the candidates, and hope to see you all on the 15th if we can do it together that way. And that's it. On behalf of the Foxborough Jaycees, thank you for watching, and have a good night.